If you're talking about endgame broadcast or podcast microphones, the ones people would ultimately tend to get to record their podcasts or YouTube videos, then there's always the same 304 that we are ending up with. Well, now maybe there's another one. Listen up and watch closely because I will be cheating. And one thing up front, if you're not listening to me right now using headphones, you'll be pretty much surprised in the next 1 minute. But if you are using headphones, I guarantee you that you will have your mic drop. First of all, let's get the Electro-Voice RE320 out of the way for a moment, as you are not listening to it anyway. Don't worry, it'll be back, and it'll be back for a good reason. So the first podcast microphone that pops up is usually the infamous SM7B, which is the Earth's most beloved broadcast dynamic microphone. And would you believe me if I told you that right now I'm not actually talking into the SM7B? Yes, you can hear the SM7B's signature warm and smooth broadcast sound, which is thanks to its iconic build with the large resonance chamber at the back, which helps emphasize the low bass frequencies. However, what you were actually hearing since the start of this video is the microphone in front of me, which is the Dynacaster from SE Electronics. I told you I will be cheating, however my intention is not at all to lose your trust, and I will show you how the SM7B actually sounds compared to the Dynacaster later in this video. But before I get to it, I would like to show you something more. I think you know by now where we are going with this, but here we go. The second contender I have is a similarly beloved microphone, albeit admittedly by a smaller group of people, the Electro-Voice RE320. Easy to distinguish from the SM7B, as it has a much more modest but still clearly present low end, but it is a way more bright and airy sounding microphone than what it mainly competes with. And I bet you all have guessed it by now. You're not actually listening to it. It's the SE Dynacaster again. Sweet, isn't it? Once again, I'll compare this one back to back against the Dynacaster 2, but first things first, how does the Dynacaster do it? Well, the Dynacaster has 3 specific tricks up its sleeve. The first is that it has a built-in EQ to alter its sonic characteristics, first in the low frequencies, which generate that warm and fuzzy sound, as well as in the high frequencies, which are responsible for clarity, articulation, and generally all the top-end information in your voice. You can switch them back and forth as you like, and the certain combination of these EQ switches will result in the Dynacaster to sound very similar to the SM7B, or very much exactly like the RE320, if that's what you're looking for. However, don't think that it is a microphone that is designed to emulate any of them, just because it can. You can also create your personal preferred sound that is discreetly yours and discreetly the SE Dynacaster. The second is that while it is a dynamic broadcast microphone, it has a mic activator built in, which provides it with extra 30 dB of clean gain in exchange for adding 48 volts of phantom power to it. This is SE Electronics' own DYNAMITE preamp, which, if not built in here, sells for over $100. Of course, if you have interfaces like the Vocaster from Focusrite or the new Rodecaster Pro 2, then you don't really need to have to worry about mic activators, as they can provide enough clean gain. However, if you have an older interface or a little cheaper one that do not quite have strong enough or clean enough preamps, then to avoid hiss and a noisy recording, many people would recommend you to use a mic activator like a Cloud Lifter or a Fathead or an SE Dynamithe for that matter, even though you don't necessarily need it. But nonetheless, this microphone has this built in, and it's just a flick of a switch away, and then basically any audio interface in the world that has 48 volts phantom power can use it. The third trick is, which sets it apart from most notably the Electro-Voice microphone, is that it has a very solid 3-layer pop protection built in, which you can have a look at when unscrewing the grill from the capsule. This is very effectively reducing the chances of having those popping sounds, like when you say something like, "Put back the popcorn, pretty please." I'll show you in a minute how it would turn out if you try to say the same sentence on the RE320. So let's hear them side by side, shall we? And this time I will actually indicate which one you are hearing, why you are hearing it. This is the Shure SM7B. Anyone who has ever heard a podcast or listened to a radio station would be familiar with its rich warm sound, which has main advantage is that it is very easy on the ears to listen to, and it is not fatiguing even if you are listening to it for hours. It's been tried to be imitated, which mostly only really succeeded in the looks, but not in the sound. so far. What's really unique about its warmth in the low end is that it never gets boomy or muddy. Much of it comes actually from the design of the microphone. On the back there's a rather large resonance chamber that acoustically helps emphasizing the low frequencies but retains a certain crispiness in the voice and does not create any annoying mud or boominess in the bass, and it is not EQing it, so it does not actually boost anything in the frequency response of the microphone. No wonder that other microphone manufacturers are experimenting with very similar designs. But you know what? Let's just try to distinguish it from the SE Dynacaster, which you are listening to right now. It also has a form factor at the back with the resonance chamber, and all I did is I have engaged a low shelf on the back of the microphone and left the high frequency switch on flat. And this is the sound I'm getting. Remarkably close, right? Switching back to the SM7B, with really good studio headphones with a flat response, you will surely notice an ever so slight difference. But the Dynacaster does a really good job too in emphasizing a smooth low end and still retain clarity in the high end, even though it's to a large extent thanks to a low frequency boost. So much so that it's pretty hard to differentiate from its famous peer, the SM7B. So how about the Electro-Voice RE320? It is very different from the SM7B. It also has a signature sound that is very close to its bigger brother, the RE20, but it is even a little more bright. Impossible to replicate? Well, let's have a listen to the SE Dynacaster. This time with the low end still boosted, but also engaging the second, more aggressive high shelf on it, out of the two. To me, it is again a very close race. Listening to it on mobile phone speakers, it will be virtually indistinguishable. Switching back to the RE320, you can hear its clean, bright, airy radio sound that is also very pleasing to many who do not prefer the commanding broadcast bottom end of the Shure SM7B, although it certainly has a pop problem. Put back the popcorn pretty please. Not the case with the SE Dynacaster, which eliminates such issues very well with its 3-layer pop filter. In exchange, the aggressive high-end boost can cause sibilance problems, so if you have very harsh S's in your voice, you will need to apply a de-esser, but it is easier to solve in post than the popping problem of the RE320. On the positive side, apart from the clear and bright sound, the RE320 has a variable D technology, which helps avoid the proximity effect, that it also doesn't change the coloration of its sound when you are moving a little bit to the side of it. Really nice, especially if you have a podcast guest who does not have a great deal of experience speaking into microphone and tends to move around a lot. You can have a compressor to compensate for the loudness changes, but unless you have this variable D technology, you'll get a different coloration in their voice as soon as they move to the side of the microphone, which is then impossible to fix in post. However, if you are in love with the slightly more sexy sound of the SM7B, or prefer the rugged look of the RE320, and speaking into one of them lends you any satisfaction, someone once said that alone by talking into an SM7B or into an Electro-Voice RE320 or RE20 instantly gives you the feeling that you are saying something very important and smart. So if the notion that you own these microphones or you're talking into them gives you any satisfaction, by all means go for them. You'll not be disappointed. They are absolutely top-notch microphones. I, for one, really like the smooth and warm sound of the Dynacaster, as well as its versatility. My favorite EQ setting on it that seems to work best for my voice is, however, neither of the settings that I use to emulate the SM7B or to sound similar to the RE320. I rather leave the low end flat, as my voice is deep enough not to have to boost it any further. And to make it even worse, I tend to muffle the end of my words and lower my voice towards the end of the sentences. Therefore, I really appreciate the additional clarity that the first high shelf provides without the sibilance of the second high shelf, and this is what you are hearing right now. And by the way, this setting, interestingly, is also very close to what you'd get from the SM7B if you would engage the mid-boost filter on it, which I just did. Finishing off with the SE Dynacaster, I hope this comparison helps you in choosing the best mic for your voice, but a word of caution, don't just rely on this video. Go and listen to more people reviewing these mics so that you have different sound samples and more opinions. Bye for now. Man, this is hard. My Delgado, Audio Haze, Podcast Stage, Bandrew. Respect, guys. Doing a microphone review is tough. All right.